Yes, people, welcome back to another video. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, do all of the good stuff because we are talking about a big signing for Spurs. This one is something that they've needed, a holding midfielder with experience coming into Tottenham Football Club under the new manager, Thomas Frank, as well. A new regime, a new villain in there, someone with the dark arts, a bit of know-how. That's what Tottenham have done, people, because they have agreed a loan with a potential option to buy for Mr. Joao Palhinha himself, former defender, Fulham defensive midfielder, former Bayern Munich defensive midfielder, comes in at the ripe old age of 30, the prime for a defensive midfielder with them leadership qualities, with them leadership skills, with that know-how, with just how to slow the game down, break it up. Tottenham have finally got their man, and this one has been brewing for a little while now. This one has been going on around for the last, 2 weeks. There's been murmurings talking about it and whether Tottenham could explore the option for a deal, buy option or a loan. And it looks like Tottenham have got exactly what they've wanted with a loan option, which is perfect for all parties because Palhinha has to now come back to Tottenham in the Premier League and prove himself. But at the end of the day, Tottenham are also not spending money straight away and saying, right, we've got to pay a big fee for someone that is 30 years of age and might not be the same player. But Tottenham will be hoping that he is that same player because when I look at Tottenham, I think they were missing a defensive midfielder in there. I think Tottenham have got a good squad. I think the squad's better than what people think, actually. And I think Thomas Frank could be able to get more out of them than maybe what Ange did, especially after his first 6 months of the season. But when I look at Tottenham and I'm like, where are they a little bit short? I've always felt defensive midfield. And people might scream out to me and say, look, they've got Papi Sarr, they've got Basuma, they've got Bentancur, they've got Bergvall. When I look at them players, none of them really scream to me defensive midfielder. I think there's a difference between a central midfielder and a box-to-box midfielder, an advanced midfielder. But there's something different about that holy position of a defensive midfielder. And this is exactly what Joao Palhinha is. We've seen it as well. I'm a Man United fan, and as people know, I've been screaming for Man United to go out and sign proven Premier League players. Someone just with some experience. I know what I'm getting on a tin, and they go out there and we just give them the platform to perform. Essentially, that's what it is. It's great bringing in these wonder kids and bringing in youngsters as well that you think are going to work and this and that. Like, of course, it's exciting bringing in different types of players. But I also think it's vital to bring in some Premier League experience. You'll be looking at adding 1 or 2 additions to the squad. It's very good. It's healthy. They can help guide the young players. They can bring a new level of nous and experience to the team. And especially if you're competing for, Champions League spots or you're in Europe, it really does help. And Joao Palhinha fits the bill perfectly for Spurs. Being 30 years of age, I think, is really good for a defensive midfielder. I always think the best defensive midfielders take a bit longer to learn the game in terms of their position, tactical fouls, slowing down the game, wasting time, being intelligent with positioning, breaking up play. And that's what Palhinha has done over the years. When you look at his last 2 seasons in the Premier League, and this is for Fulham, of course, 22-23 season, 35 games, 3 goals, 0 assists. It doesn't matter about the goals and the assists. It's about the availability, which I think is very important. 35 games he played in the league that season. The year after that, 23-24 season, where he was then linked with a lot of clubs across Europe, he played 33 league games. So that shows the availability is high. I always think if you play over 30 league games every season, you're giving your team some level of consistency. Because there's 38 games in the league, effectively, of course. So you're giving your team a level of consistency. And I feel like since he's moved to Bayern Munich, it just hasn't quite worked out for him. You think he went to Bayern Munich in a year that they didn't win the league the year before that. Bayer Leverkusen did. So obviously that's a bit of pressure, if I'm honest, because you're going into a team now that needs reinforcements, needs to win the league. They bought Joao Palhinha as one of them players they thought were going to set up camp in the middle of the park. But he never really, I'm not going to say he didn't. 1, he didn't really get enough chances. And 2, I don't think he performed as well as he would have liked when he did. So it's a mix of both. Sometimes some moves don't work out. It doesn't mean the club are bad. It doesn't mean the player are bad. I just think that sometimes a move doesn't work out and you have to move on. And, they had Kimmich in there. They had Goretzka. They had the young player Pavlovic playing. He was getting more game time, especially being a German international, I believe. So, it was just quite hard for Joao Palhinha to come into a pressure team of Bayern Munich that had to win the league And obviously they did that. He's got that title now, but he wants to play more. He wants to be in that World Cup squad next year for Portugal. Let's not forget that, people. It's a big year for a lot of players. And I just think now, when you look at the midfielders like I named at Spurs, the Bergvilles, Bentancurs, Basuma, Sars, they don't scream to me defensive midfielders. And that's why I think having Palhinha in there is now going to benefit them. One is going to benefit the Spurs squad because Romero and Van der Ven are going to have someone there with that sort of defensive security in front of them. It makes Spurs harder to break down. It gives them a bit more of a base. On top of having Thomas Frank as the coach, he's going to be different to Ange as a coach, more drilled, definitely got more Premier League experience. We know that he's a good coach. He's done it at Brentford for years. But then what it does now is it frees up players, especially if you're playing a 4-3-3, which I think is what he's going to do, is that Bergville, Bentancur, Maddison, Kulusevski, whoever it is, Papi Sarr breaking lines, you've now got players in those positions that can now do what they're good at, which I feel like is advancing with the ball. Bentancur is not really, he can sit deep. Don't get it twisted. He's very technical, but I feel like he's better when he's able to have license to get around the pitch and express himself. And now he can do that. And Bentancur is a good player, by the way. I definitely have him in my starting 11 at Spurs. But then on top of that, I have Bergville as well, who's very good, young talent, ball carrying ability, can dribble, has no fear, is young as well, athletic. I think he's going to have an even better season than he did last year. So obviously he's coming back from the injury, but he's got that Premier League experience under his belt now as a young player. But I feel like having sort of a triangle three, should I say like that, triangle three, Palhinha sitting at the base, and then Bergville and Bentancur here, it allows them to get more forward. Kulusevski can be great in them pockets as well, in them positions. I know he can play in the front three as well. You've got James Maddison. You've got Papi Sarr now that can break lines and get forward. And I feel like Joao Palhinha and Basuma can now be the base of the midfield. And look, this is me speaking as a neutral. Whoever plays, whether it's Basuma, whether it's Palhinha, whether it's Palhinha or Basuma, I think you're going to be happy with either because both are good technical players that can sit at the base of the midfield. And when you're playing in the Champions League, then you've got the FA Cup, you've got the Carabao Cup, then you've got the league to try and compete and getting back into the top four again for next season after this. Then I feel like you need two good players in each position. And Tottenham have now done that, with Palhinha coming in. And I think one big thing as well, when you look at Palhinha as well, which I think like when you look at the position of a defensive midfielder, it's like, where do you want them? And it shows here, this is Palhinha's, heat map. He stays in the middle of the park. He's there. He's mopping up dirt. He's intercepting. He's breaking up play. He's staying in that base of that midfield. Sometimes he's to the left of the midfield. Sometimes he's a bit to the right. But that's what you do as a defensive midfielder, especially when you're trying to break up play and intercept and read the game. You get about the pitch, but that's a strong heat map. That is exactly where you want your defensive midfielder, being combative, getting in duels, He's not the most amazing on the ball, but he's not meant to be amazing on the ball. All he's meant to do as a defensive midfielder, the way he plays it, and the way Casemiro plays it, and then Fernandinho players, is that they get the ball and they give it to their midfielders or they give it to the other players around them. They're there to break up the play, do their defensive job, make the team be more secure, and then give it to the Bergvilles, the James Maddisons, Kulusevskis, Bentancurs, and let them do the magic. That's what it's about. It's about having balance in the team. 100%. And Palhinha gives them that. I think this is going to be a very smart signing for Spurs. A very, very smart signing for Spurs. I don't know where they see themselves in a year's time if they're going to purchase him, but if the fee's right, he'll be 31 potentially by then obviously that's a decision you make. But I think for a loan move and bringing in someone with that experience, big year with the World Cup, playing in the Champions League, needing a bigger squad, and not having a natural proper defensive midfielder, I think this ticks a lot of boxes. And it's a very smart move from Thomas Frank and the board, especially getting him on a loan. So, let me know what you think in the comments, people. I think this is the perfect recipe to allow the rest of Tottenham midfielders to flourish and go forward and do what they need to do. But it'll be great to hear your thoughts. Guys, make sure you smash the like, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you on the other side. Joao Palhinha to Tottenham. Here we go.